In the next few minutes, we'll share an example of a process walk for an improvement project done at King County. You'll understand why process walks are so important and learn best practices that will help you ensure your next process walk is a success. So process walk is one of the most important tools anybody could actually use in the Lean Process Improvement Toolkit, because it helps people see the process, it helps people really understand and build profound knowledge of the current state of the process. And most of the time, people are just operating and improving without really knowing what the process is. So when you bring people together to do a process walk, and they actually get to see the process all together at the same time, a shared understanding, that is really powerful.
When I go by and watch some of the process walks, I feel this energy coming from the group, and I think that that's really valuable, because it's sort of like if you were one person was in a room and you really weren't walking around seeing the process, it wouldn't be as interesting, and you wouldn't see that sort of vibrancy among people in the group. So it really makes I think a big difference when everybody is sort of walking the process together.
So the first step of the process walk is really to gather the folks together that are going to be part of that walk, and to set the expectations of what the process walk will look like, who will participate, what their roles will be of the different participants, and really to start establishing that safe environment where, we're not going to come in and place blame. It's really about what's going on in the process, and not concentrate on what the people are doing in the process so much. So really creating that safe environment, and then from the leader's perspective, setting the stage for them that this is not their time to go in and problem solve or to blame it's really to see what's actually happening and not have a reaction like, oh, that's what you're doing. I mean, that's really bad, right? So we want to be able to set the stage and get people, set the expectations so that we walk through the process walk and get what we need. And so the next stage of the process walk is actually going out and observe the process. And it's really important to have the people that do the work perform the process in the process walk, and keep the audience to a minimum so that you don't feel like they're in a fishbowl, but really again creating that safe environment and actually walking the process from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, because sometimes what we try to do is, we'll accommodate time schedules and we'll look at step 4 and then we'll go back to step 1 and then maybe go. It's really important to do it in the steps that the process happens in.
Once the orientation is done and the process walk begins, you basically do all of the interviews as scheduled, and you follow it in the order of the process. So you are actually the thing. You're the application. You are pretending you are the thing, and you're actually going and walking the process. And that's a really important part of process walk, is pretend you're the thing and then walk the process in the order that the thing, whatever that is, application or permit or whatever it is, goes through the process. And there can be some really big learnings around that. So I'm sorry, Michelle, I already have a question.
Sure.
So nobody touches it until a lead assigns it.
Nobody touches it until a lead assigns the actual service request.
All right, thank you.
So we receive a service request.
Sometimes the biggest mistakes people make when they're doing a process walk is that they actually break the process up and they have people interview separate pieces of the process. And that actually is not a good idea, because it doesn't build a shared understanding of the process. They have to go together, they have to see the process together, and if you break it up, people don't have that experience. And that's when people really see the ahas around what they need to change in the process and why they should change it. If they all see it at the same time, you don't have to implement change management to force people to change. They want to change on their own because they just saw it all together. So that's really important.
There's usually statements made like, I never knew that, or I didn't know that these were steps that we could cut out of the process, or these are forms that nobody was using. So I think it's, I guess you could call it the aha moments, when people see something that even though they've been doing this process sometimes for 5 years or 10 years, now they're seeing the process for the first time, and I think it's really sort of eye-opening. So I see a lot of people exclaim there are these aha moments.
We are the strategic partners and analytics team, so we go to our SharePoint work order site, and it will look something like this with all the different requests. And right now I'm working on an advertisement for an ITV that came from Robin Richards, and this is ammunition. And what I'm going to do is next open her F drive to open up the document.
You know, I don't think anybody's ever gotten in trouble for participating in a process walk, but you do have to make it safe for people. And I think, you know, facilitating a process walk in the right way, making sure that people understand what a process walk is, and that it's about the process, not the people, then people start to feel safe about saying what they really think about the process and how it works or how it doesn't work. But that safety is critical.
Yeah, so BDCC also uses the service request system to, as a notification for when a customer has submitted an SOAW form. And that form triggers our analysis of their scope of work. What are they requesting? And what type of request in terms of a contracting category is it? Is it for construction services? Is it architectural engineering, professional services, or is it for goods and services? And that's important because it tells us what utilization strategy we may be able to apply depending on the funding source.
And then the third is, after the process walk is complete and we've gone through that walk, is to come back and debrief. What did we see? What happened? What were our aha moments? What do we want to take away from this experience? The action plan, who's going to do what, when, and by what time, and really setting the expectations of what process improvements are going to come out of that in the end.
So after all the interviews are complete, we do a final debrief, and I really do like to ask people what they thought of doing the walk, and I always hear people say that was worthwhile. That was really good use of our time, and we learned a lot. We learned stuff that we didn't know before, and that's a really important part of the process walk. So after we do the map, then we have people brainstorm by section what they are going to actually do to make changes based on what they saw. So we're not forcing anybody to make changes that they're not comfortable with. Each section is actually brainstorming improvements based on what they saw in the process walk. And the wonderful thing is, typically those improvements are just really trying to make the process better for everybody. They're not necessarily focused only on that department's productivity improvement. It's focused on the entire process, which is great because often we see sometimes that people make improvements and they just improve it for their piece of the process, but not the whole process and not the customer. So after we brainstorm improvements, a big part of the next phase or next action would be to design a new process. So if people feel like they're ready and that is something that they want to do, we will design a new process right then and there. And then we'll put together our next steps and an action plan to see what they need to do to brainstorm those improvements. So there's a lot of work being done. It's not just walking the process, it's also mapping the process. Interviewing customers is always a great thing to do also because often we really don't know what customers want and we don't really hear from them enough. And so sometimes interviewing the customers can be really helpful too.
And so for short-term solutions, Sandy and I discussed that we are going to provide access to all of our BDCC team members to be able to retrieve SOAWs. So we're eliminating that step of waiting for an assigned staff member to review the SOAW. So when a BDCC team member goes in on a routine basis to see which SOAWs have been submitted, then that team member will know, oh, there's this category, I need to review that particular category.
There were some concerns about resistance to change, especially people who's been owning the process for many years or decades in some cases. They get really married to the process and they have some emotional connection and ties and how it should be, right? But at the end of the process walk, I was actually surprised how even the people we thought might be difficult to change were still on board and wanting to improve. because everybody could see the pain that people are going through by the poor design of the process.
We're able to stand back and look at our own process. Sometimes we're so deeply engaged in it that it's hard to take a moment and to look at it from a different perspective. And this process walk gave us input from a different perspective, right with colleagues who are working in the same division. We're better informed about our colleagues or sometimes our customers as well, and helping us to really give more thought about what we can do and how we package this work in handing it off. We have identified some quick hits, some quick wins for us that I think, as a manager, taps into the knowledge and expertise on our team and gets me out of the way. I mean, we've got years of knowledge on our team that now I'm really tapping into. Well, my experience participating in the process walk has been really enlightening. I think it's been very insightful to look closer at the work of teams where we have a handoff with them. Our work is helping to deliver a service to the customer, and oftentimes we're just looking at our piece. It's really helpful to learn more about what's happening in that process in other work groups.
So when I walked away with the process walk, it felt like going through a group therapy. So a lot of people got to see the same process together, and there was a lot of moments where people were saying things like, "Huh, you do what?" kind of thing, and also felt like there was a good brainstorming, and people are immediately going towards naturally we want to do problem solving, right? So there was a lot of great ideas that everybody could see, and it wasn't something that was very difficult to get to. Everybody had immediately great ideas that was brainstormed. It was so easy to get consensus because you were seeing the process together, and so now putting everyone on the same page, and therefore your ideas, what we thought could be potential solution wasn't that far away from what other people thought would be a good idea to try out. Doing the process walk itself, the day of process walk, was a lot of fun. I mean, I think it was a great opportunity to bond with your coworkers that you don't necessarily get to work with very closely oftentimes. It was a really good opportunity for team bonding as well as understanding each other's process and getting to know people also. Personality shine through as we're doing discussions about what works and what doesn't. So it was great.
Doing process walks, facilitating process walks, is actually one of my most favorite things to do because I see the power in process walks, how people react to it, the dynamics that change, the relationships that get better, because it's just a very powerful tool if done well and if facilitated correctly. It really helps people move forward with process improvement, and that's really exciting to me.
I would say that if you haven't done a process walk, that you should. Take the time to do it. It's a great investment. It builds the strength of your team. It breaks down some of the communication barriers within your section, your division, your department, and allows you to see the work in a different way.
Process walks have a significant impact on projects. They create a shared experience of the current state process and make it much easier to get consensus and come up with ideas to improve the process. In this case, as you can see, by comparing the pre-improvement lead time in blue to the post-improvement timeline in green, the cycle time for almost every step of the process was reduced after the project was completed. Measurable results are very important for an improvement project, and this team delivered. The lead time went from 29.2 days to 13.4 days. Overall, this means that there was a 54.1% decrease in overall lead time, 89.1% decrease in SOAW eval and review cycle time, and a 46.3% decrease in review folder creation cycle time. It's time for the team to celebrate for a job well done. So now you've got an idea of what a process walk is, why they're so important, and some best practices to help ensure your next process walk is a success. For more information about process walks, visit us at golean6sigma.com.